Mike, great to be talking to you today. Looking forward to learning more about CoreLogic. You're an organization that many people are aware of, may not realize that you're actually capitalized at $6 billion, and you're offering services to consumers, financial services, and for property. And from insurance point of view, that's ranging from underwriting all the way through to claims. You yourself, SVP for CoreLogic International. So delighted to have you and love to hear a little bit more about the problems you're helping insurers solve.
Thanks, Matthew. Very happy to be here. We typically describe our value to the insurance sector in four areas. The first is understanding risk at the point of underwriting, whether that's hazard or valuation in terms of the exposure. We look at CAT modelling, so understanding at a much broader level the impact of a catastrophe on a book of business for the reinsurance sector. We look at claims, workflow, estimating, distribution, and lots of other things within that space, in particular for the customer. And finally, we look at restoration, which is when we work with the supply chain themselves in terms of improving the value that they can deliver to the insurance workflow.
So let's talk about point of underwriting. A lot of companies now are trying to help underwriters make their life easier, give them better analytics. Can you give an example of what you're offering in that area?
Well, at the point of underwriting, one of the things that we've brought to market is comes from our mortgage business in the US, and that's the ability for us to take imagery that we have within our data set to identify first floor or ground floor height for any individual property in the United States. So we can understand that, particularly for localized flooding, and when we're applying this to our hazard models for flood, we can see what the actual likelihood of property damage would be on an individual property based on the imagery. And applying machine learning to that imagery, we can measure, in effect, the first floor height of all those properties in the United States. It's quite exciting.
Now, claims is an area that there's lots of opportunities for using technology. What would be an example where companies are working with you to provide better support for claims services?
In claims, one of the main things that we do, if you like, if you were to put the broad brush across it, is that we help insurance companies digitize their property claims workflow, whether that's all the way from the notification of a claim all the way through to fulfillment or cash settlement, depending on what they want to do. We're actually working with 9 out of the top 15 insurers in the UK market in various ways to do that, whether that's helping with estimating in the field, the integration of suppliers, the ability for us to provide access to the claim to the customer online. Lots of different use cases, but generally speaking, it's about digitization and bringing the claims process forward in terms of efficiency and effectiveness.
Now, restoration is an area that many people aren't going to be so familiar with unless they've experienced a claim. What would be an example about how you're helping people get back on their feet and apply restoration at CoreLogic?
So what we do is, for restoration, is we actually work with the restoration companies in terms of how they can better and more successfully manage their business. So the customer in that context is actually the contractor or the supplier rather than the insurance company. But the benefit that we drive, or that we enable, if you like, is that we can connect those businesses more wholly and completely with the insurance company to provide better data flow throughout the process. And that drives a huge amount of value to the policyholder in terms of their experience, to the insurer in terms of their understanding of process and cost, but also to the contractor in terms of how they can manage their business and be more effective in their own objectives and goals as well.
Catastrophe modelling is very much front of mind for people now. We're seeing more wildfires, we're seeing floods, hurricanes are getting more active. What is it that CoreLogic is offering in that area?
So in CAT modelling, one of the things that we have within our organisation is a very extensive science and analytics group, which looks at the science really that impacts insurance and risk across the world, whether that's around climate change and the impact of that on frequency and severity, or whether it's a more traditional CAT modelling process and analysis that we undertake. We've got about 180 models globally. And what we try and do, as well as servicing the traditional reinsurance market brokers and reinsurers, is we also try and bring our other data assets, so that's valuation and individual and detailed valuation on properties that might be within a portfolio, and we apply that to the CAT model. So the idea is not just about severity, frequency, but also exposure. The value and complexity that we can offer in terms of the exposure analysis is, we would say, differentiated. So it's a key part of our business, and it's very much led, drives the kind of science investment that we make.
What would be an example where you feel that CoreLogic is a leader in offering some of the data services to your clients?
So CoreLogic's a leader primarily because of the breadth of the data that we have. So in the US market in particular, we have a very significant part of the mortgage industry and the mortgage market transacting on our platforms and using our data. That gives us access to data that other organizations just simply don't have. So if you take, for example, the way that we do our first floor height calculations, we're actually accessing property listings of individual properties so that we can see actual front elevation rather than, say, using Google Street View or other things which are quite not as accurate. And as you can imagine, in a local flood, the difference between 6 feet, whether the property's on stilts or not, whether there's a garage underneath the property, whether what the construction type of that property is at that location is incredibly important to the understanding of what the actual risk is, rather than taking a more blanket approach, which might be necessary with other approaches.
Now, let's talk a bit about claims. That's your background. Clearly, there's a big saving for companies to be able to process claims more quickly, but also to be more accurate in terms of assessing the loss. What would be an example of where you're seeing technology that's particularly interesting to you, given your background, that's helping with the claims process?
So in the claims process, we bring a real range of value. But the way that I describe it most often is we have the ability through our estimating technology to actually understand the indemnity exposure on an individual claim very early in the process. We can actually take the specific information of the loss, whether that's provided to us by the policyholder through a live video call, whether it's provided through an online interface, or whether it's captured by a supplier. We take that information and we can use it to make better decisions early in the process to distribute the claim in the most appropriate way into the right supply chain partner. That just massively improves experience for the policyholder. It controls indemnity because it anchors the claim in an understood scenario, if you like, and it also creates value for the insurance company in terms of their operational expense, because reduces rework, reduces failure demand within the process, inbound phone calls, and so there's a real value chain there that we try and influence all the way along the process.
Now, one of the areas that we're seeing quite a lot of development in claims is using live video to settle claims. Can you explain how that works in practice?
Policyholders' willingness to accept a call or to have an interaction via video is actually way higher than was originally expected. It's been around a long time. There was a lot of nervousness pre-pandemic of people saying, well, actually, the policyholders don't want to interact that way, but it was just proven to be incorrect, frankly. The way that it's used is that we can actually use live video calling, typically with additional functionality than you would necessarily see in, say, something like a Teams call, where you can actually use the device and take advantage of the features of the device to capture more information. Let's say that's measurements or photographs or even identify objects within the call. We can then pull that information into our system as a data set and then use it to either create estimates, drive workflow, identify vulnerabilities for the customer, lots of different things. It's all about how we get data into the platform and into our data model. Once it's in the platform, we can use that to make better decisions and drive benefit to all the parties involved.
So, Mike, everyone's talking about generative AI, ChatGPT, large language models. As a developer of software, one of the biggest use cases we're seeing now is using these tools to actually create some efficiencies. What examples are you seeing within CoreLogic for how you can use this?
So the use of generative AI within our business is very much within the development space. Some of my colleagues in that area of the organization are setting up, for example, collaboration platforms where we can share learning from the use of generative AI within the code process. So whether that's development, whether it's code checks and code reviews, whether it's QA once the product's actually been developed and we're getting ready for release, development operations in terms of automation in that space, it's very exciting. So it's going to revolutionize, I think, the frequency and speed of software development for every organization in that space, especially as we've had a talent challenge, if you like, on development over the last number of years. I think this is going to make those high talent individuals that you can find more efficient, more effective, and create huge increase in capacity as well.
So 9 out of the top 15 insurance companies are working with you on claims. I see that Admiral has revealed that they're one of the companies working with you. Can you talk a bit more about what you're doing with them?
So with Admiral, we're really excited about working with them. We've successfully integrated our technology with their core claims system. We've integrated their supply chain. We're working with lots of different types of suppliers across their property workflow. We're involving the policyholder in that. It's quite an early relationship, but we're really happy with the success that we've seen so far, and we'll hope it'll continue for many years.
People that want to know more about CoreLogic, I think you've got an event coming up, and people are busy. So how are you going to convince them to come along?
So INTRCONNECT Europe, it's on the 20th of September, 8 Northumberland in London. Very excited to be here in London to present and to talk about all the things that are interesting for the property insurance sector. We've got people there representing claims, cat risk, underwriting and restoration. So we're going to have customers and partners and people collaborating together to learn from each other, perhaps where they don't typically interact with those areas of the value chain. This will give them an opportunity to do that. We've got some great and interesting keynote speakers. We've got speakers including yourself, Matthew. Very excited to have you in the presentations as well. And I think it's just a great opportunity for us to bring people together. The theme of the event is Better Together, because we believe that the opportunity is there for people to learn from each other, to find out more about the way and the issues and concerns that people are facing in the industry, and try and drive a better overall result for everybody involved.
And for anybody that wants to go to the event, how do they register?
To register for the event, I think the best option is to head onto LinkedIn, search for me, Michael Porter, CoreLogic. I'll be posting about it pretty much every day, so there'll be information there. But if you do have any questions, you want to find out more, send me a message and I'll be happy to give you anything that you need.
Mike, it's been a pleasure talking today. I've learned a lot. Thank you very much for coming to join us.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.